So, guys, another round of catastrophic, apocalyptic Russia news continuing to pour forth from the savage Russian hell state. Before we get into Putin's newest superweapon, a couple hours ago, Putin sending out the propaganda team to scare the pants off Western politicians with his newest superweapon, not the superweapon from last week that was supposed to scare the pants off of Western politicians sufficient that he would be given everything on his acquisition list, which is basically, everything west of Moscow, whether it be the Baltics or Ukraine or Moldova or Romania, the ever-growing acquisition list from the Moscow gargoyle. Before we get into that, we've got the Russian steel industry absolutely off a cliff with Russian earnings season upon us, with oil companies, the steel industry, trucking industry, everything absolutely off a cliff. Steel industry off 75%. The trucking industry not much better. We got the largest Russian oil companies having to sell off a quarter of all their assets that are outside of Russia. A quarter of all of these Russian oil companies' assets are outside of Russia, and now they're having to sell them off for pennies due to the newest U.S. sanctions round, which is awesome. We've got Putin expanding his program of arresting musicians. I'll get into that. Now he just arrested a university professor, put him in a glass cage, and he's going on trial for posting two songs, Ukrainian songs, on his Facebook page. Looking at 12 years in prison. Yeah, it's not funny. Anyway, Russian refineries continuing to get struck by Ukrainian armed forces all last night. Ukrainian armed forces hitting the electrical grid that surrounds Moscow. Strategic strikes. I'll get into the map on that. We've got Musk's new AI sourcing the Kremlin, the depths of Kremlin propaganda, and putting them out as facts. And that is, just a lot of bad news, a lot of good news. First, let's get into Putin's propaganda, his newest propaganda stunt. Read what I wrote here. With the humiliation of last week's failed, big, scary superweapon still fresh, Putin tries again, rolling out yet another superweapon to scare Western politicians that no longer care. Putin, we tested Poseidon, unlike anything in the world. And this is just a clip of him rattling off a series of scare words to get the Western world to, oh my God, we have to give him everything he wants. And as you know, last week's BS test, his little propaganda stunt where he said, where they tried to pass off a normal missile as a, quote, nuclear-powered missile that runs on nuclear fuel, and the Norwegians say it was just a regular missile. And Putin, anyway, tried to scare everybody with that. It didn't work. The gargoyle midget further elaborated, the Poseidon's power significantly exceeds that of our most advanced intercontinental missile, the Sarmat. There's nothing like it anywhere else. It's exactly what he said last week about the Borisviet, whatever it was called, missile, the nuclear-powered missile that we later found out that was just a normal missile. He said it flew 14,000 kilometers. No one has any record of these things. Putin this is insane levels of desperation, and really it's hubris that he would believe that anyone is going to buy any of this BS. Russia's trucking industry continues to implode, with sales of trucks down 63.6% in third quarter 2025. Sales of vans down 60%. Russian media did their duty, trying to use a headline number of only minus 57%, only 57%. Imagine if a U.S. car company had a quarter that was this is actually 3 months. This is the first 9 months of 2025 compared to the same period from 2024, down 57%. Imagine any U.S. company had numbers like that. This is for the whole industry. This isn't just like one company. It's the entire Russian trucking industry. But that's for entire first 9 months. There's no longer a way to paint this. So Russian propagandists, I covered this a couple videos ago, are required. Everything has to run through the Kremlin filter, and you're required, if you're the editor, whether you're a journalist or editor or a publisher, you have to insert some little nonsense. In the first 9 months of the year, 32,800 new heavy-duty trucks. Okay, you can read this yourself. Anyway, so the sales are absolutely collapsing, and you can see the numbers right here. This is in line, basically the same numbers that we're seeing from the steel industry. I mean, these are massive companies that employ thousands and thousands of people all over Russia. Now, the steel industry, this is what our buddy Yevgen wrote, the rise and fall of Russian metallurgists. This is third quarter. Severstal, that is the number one or number two largest steel company, steel producer in Russia, down 62.9% for the third quarter year over year. MMK is either the first or the second. It's one of those two, largest steel producer in Russia, down 72.1%. Everything is shrinking due to sanctions, a decline in construction, and competition from China. This is for you chart folks. And understand that this is in billions of rubles, okay? So what you see over here was the depths of COVID, the Russian steel industry in the depths of COVID. But what they don't say here, what Yevgen, it's rare that he forgets something, but he didn't account for the fact that the ruble was about 15% stronger here. So in terms of any currency from a civilized place, like the dollar or the euro, we are 15% below the depths of COVID, when the Russian economy was in a full state of collapse, as was really the world economy. So we haven't seen anything like this since the 1990s. Due to U.S. sanctions, Lukoil was forced to announce the sale of all its foreign assets. Lukoil is worth about $40 billion total, all assets worldwide, and they're having to sell off about 25% of those here. And here's a chart of how the equity market is taking that news. And admittedly, now headlines like this are becoming commonplace when in reference to the collapsing Russian economy. I just wrote Russian economy falling off a cliff, which is a screenshot of this headline from Moscow Times. This is from early this morning. The mood is gloomy. Almost 80% of Russian industry has slipped into recession. And as Russia's domestic economy continues to collapse, we have Putin ramping up the oppression, as everyone has expected. And really, this is going to lead eventually, I think the end game of all this will be all the troops that are now in Ukraine are going to be cracking skulls on the streets of Russian cities. I don't think there's anyone that would really, that understands anything about Russian history would be able to argue with that. I'll read you what I wrote here. Again tonight, Russian police arresting musicians for playing songs critical of Putin. In St. Petersburg, street musicians who performed covers from the Stop Time repertoire were detained. They are all minors. So these are kids that they're now arresting that are singing songs with lyrics like When the Tsar Dies and Old Man in the Bunker. And as you know, with any authoritarian regime, everything is propaganda. Everything is perception, the people's perception. It's all about fear. And here's some people that they arrested. I'll read it to you. The Russian woman guilty of performing songs that featured lyrics such as Old Man in the Bunker has been given yet more criminal charges after being briefly released, then immediately rearrested, now jailed for another 13 days to await trial. This is in St. Petersburg. I covered this last week. They were playing songs by a band musician that's exiled to Estonia and Germany now. Lyrics are critical of Putin. Those songs are banned in Russia. And authoritarian regimes, they fear nothing like a free people. She got out of prison. She got out of the pretrial detention and was immediately arrested by other police and dragged right back and given new charges. And now on to the college professors, the university professor that is now in a glass cage for merely posting two Ukrainian songs on his Facebook page, or his VKontakte page, I guess. Anyway, he is in a cage. He's a Moscow university professor at Moscow University. He's a philosophy lecturer, actually. And that is just way too educated, as we know from the history of Russia or Cambodia when Pol Pot took over. The first thing you have to do, you have to get rid of, as you know, in Cambodia, if you even had eyeglasses, they would come and they would massacre you and your family. Anyone with a brain is going to be put against the wall eventually. That's normally how this stuff goes. Nothing has changed in Russia for 200 years, is what he said. Facing over a decade in prison, Alexander Nestorenko, a professor at Moscow State University, sets to go on trial after daring to post 3 Ukrainian songs on his VKontakte page. Putin is on a rampage. A criminal case was initiated against Nestorenko under the article on inciting hatred or enmity. He posted 2 Ukrainian songs. Currently, an additional article on calls for extremism is included. 2 articles for each song. Before his arrest, he worked as a philosophy lecturer at Bauman University. Initially, 5 songs were involved in the case, but according to Nestorenko, he did not publish 2 of them. The song Batsko Nash Bandera was framed by the FSB. So basically saying the FSB posted them once he got access to, once the FSB had access to his computer or phone or whatever, they apparently wanted to make sure that the case stuck. One of these songs is from the 1920s, apparently. And as Russian society devolves further into its natural state of 4th century barbarity, gaining popularity in Russian cities after starting in Omsk, formations of the, quote, Russian community commit acts of violence on migrants and military conscription evaders. So this is now becoming popular in several Russian cities, where these guys just sort of wander around. And what they do is they roam around looking for military conscription evaders. Many of them are masked. And migrants. It's sort of like in the U.S. they have this Proud Boys, where it's just guys that sort of need an excuse to go out and beat up folks, dressing in camos and masks. Yes, this Russian collapse is going to be awesome because we have oligarchs now. We have a lot of unemployed men. We have poverty. We have oligarchs with endless amounts of money, with assets to protect. It's not going to be a 2-sided civil war. It's going to be multi-poled with, gangs. It's going to be gangs with real weapons. Once Putin is clearly going down, the fight for his wealth, I think, is going to be decades of tearing that country apart. That's how I think it's going to go down anyway. A busy night for Russia's oil and chemicals industries, with exploding refineries in several areas of Russia and temporarily occupied Crimea, Stavropol Krai, Ulyanovsk. We've got Crimea, of course, always on the menu, Crimea for hungry Ukrainian armed forces, and we've got the Mari El Republic. Ukraine is taking out, everything it can here. Anything that holds Russian society together. Electrical grid, oil refineries. This is all over. Some of these are burning still right now. This is video from about 12 hours ago. While we were sleeping here in Kyiv, we had bedlam breaking out all across Russia. Here is Crimea. Crimea was... This is part of a refinery, an oil storage transport depot that Ukraine has just been hammering. There's like 32 storage tanks, and I think there's only like 4 left. And last night they had a couple more, just to make sure that, good measure that this thing will never be rebuilt while Russia still has control of Crimea. And the electrical substations, to show you that this is the strategy from, there's several substations. Last night, another was hit. This is Moscow. The electricity all comes from out here to the east. It's sent via transmission wires and cables, and it has to pass through all this stuff in order to get to Moscow. And look what Ukraine is doing. Every night they are striking all of these most valuable substations that Russia really is going to have a hard time replacing. Part of Ukraine's overnight blitz on targets across Russia was this strike on the Novobryansk substation in Vigonichi-Bryansk region, one of the largest and most important substations in Western Russia. It's a key node of the unified energy system. Anyway, it goes into some detail. There's a strike. I'll show you the map in a second. There's the sound of the drone. You should hear the sound of the drone, because when they're ours, it's really great. When they're raining shawheads on us here in Kyiv, it's not so great. Ukraine just has a sort of music to them, you know. Anyway, that's not something that is going to be cheap to replace. And strikes on Crimea. What few air defenses Russia has remaining in Crimea are now being destroyed. War Translated wrote this. Last night, SBU strike drones hit a Russian Panzer S-2 air defense system and 2 radar stations in occupied Crimea. The estimated cost of the Panzer S-2 SAM system, surface-to-air missile system, is around $20 million. And here's just another angle of burning things in temporarily Russian-occupied Crimea. And the Russian propaganda matrix is really having a rough time right now. I'll read you what Stratcom wrote. With a collapsing economy and a military on the brink of mass desertions, Russia's aging and increasingly desperate crew of old propagandists. These guys have all had these positions. These propagandists have been pushing the same garbage since the 1990s. It's a very small group around Putin. Very small. Desperate crew of old propagandists that has now reverted to begging Ukraine to leave Ukraine. The facade is crumbling, and Solovyev, dressed in his little Dr. Evil suit, starts to flip out on one of his co-propagandists. It's just, shall we strike Kyiv? Yes, that worm. Where did this person come from? And now we're going to... Talking about Zelensky. No, I'll tell you this. Leave Kyiv, it'll be easier. Yeah, he looks rough, huh? You remember? He was like a playboy. He had that mansion down in Italy. Just like the people in Belgrade were forced to. Am I supposed to pity the people of Kyiv now? Don't hold your breath, that's it. There is no Kyiv. And there never will be, because you have cursed and betrayed it. And my Dr. Evil suit is scary. You have no right to be here because you are demons. You have betrayed your history and your faith. Purification by water and fire. It's like they've got, who's that horror film director from the 1980s? Oh, John Carpenter. It's like really, he's like watching this stuff and just pulling lines from a John Carpenter movie. Just absolutely devolving into bedlam across the Kremlin propaganda matrix. And as expected, the Putin regime is in love with Musk's Grokpedia that sources Russian disinformation as facts. A little mini scandal yesterday that there's a huge marketing effort right now to push. As you know, Musk tried to buy Wikipedia. They wouldn't sell it to him. He spent a couple years. Then he decided to begin demonizing them. To me, it seems like he wants a vehicle with which he can rewrite history to be the sort of king of the world. You have to control the past to control the present if you want things really simple, a la 1984. And this is old Dmitriev. Oh, and anyway, it was a scandal because if you query anything about Ukraine, you get Russian propaganda sourced, and you can see at the bottom where the bottom of the output page from Grokpedia actually says that it's pulling it from the Kremlin.ru or some other Kremlin propaganda nonsense, right? And so, of course, Russia is absolutely stoked with this. Dmitriev, as you know, that just did the around the U.S., every U.S. media outlet in 1 week to convince the United States that sanctions wouldn't hurt Russia. But please don't put sanctions on us. I urgently got on a plane here to beg you not to put the sanctions on us that will not hurt us. He tried the Let's Be Friends, and then just before he got on the plane, he threatened everyone with Putin's new superweapon. Grokpedia rules. He even uses Western slang. Grokpedia rules, bro. MSM melts. This guy's like 50-something years old. He's from Russia. I mean, this is psychological warfare, guys. Wikipedia monopoly shatters. Great day for truth. Yeah, bro. This is just for Musk to put out. He's probably hoping that he would retweet it. I don't know if he probably did. Remember my post below just before at Elon Musk announced Grokpedia. Eventually, symbiotic human plus AI model may work best. For example, humans may suggest adding the missing Russiagate hoax article, and that's a little that's about another attempt to get Trump on their side. A lot of times it's just a hit against Biden or whatever he can do to sort of curry favor. But what's been happening is since about 2005, Russia has been filling the internet with Kremlin disinformation ever since social media became a thing. It's not only websites, it's not only RT, it's not only the paid influencers in the West and in the East and every Western country, fake documentaries to convince Europe not to frack. That was one of the first waves back in the early 2000s, where they were successful in getting several European countries to make fracking illegal. They have scaled this to huge effect, and now there's a huge body of absolute nonsense, Kremlin disinformation, and so now AI has to go out and source. If you query like any subject, a certain part of that is going to be now Kremlin propaganda, because Russia's only 1.8% of the global GDP, but on the internet it's really about half of everything. Despite Russia only being 1.8% of global GDP, 25% of AI queries pull data from sources associated with the Russian state. And this is a study. I'll read you what Gerashenko posted here. This is all on the same day. All this Grokpedia, all this stuff is all hitting at the same time. Content linked to the Russian state appeared in almost 1 out of every 5 responses by AI to questions about Russia's war against Ukraine. The Institute of Strategic Dialogue. Researchers analyzed responses from 4 popular chatbots, ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, and DeepSeek, to a series of war-related questions in English, Spanish, French, German, and Italian. And I'd love to see the difference between ChatGPT, which is Sam Altman, Gemini, which is Google, Grok, which is Musk, who's sort of in love with Russia, and then DeepSeek, which is Chinese. I would love to see... they didn't break it up on that, but I would really love to see how the more Russia-friendly owners, China and Musk, fare against Google-owned Gemini and Sam Altman-owned ChatGPT. When Russia has actually become a savage civil war-racked hell state, there's no longer emitting all of this. When they can't pay the troll factories and they can't put out fake documentaries and pay these paid influencers in the U.S. $400,000 a month. It's going to be interesting if there's a cleansing. Like, how do we get rid of all this stuff? How do we stop AI from citing, totally debunked nonsense? Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. And further on Russia's global terror operations, I'll read you what I wrote here. After Russia's attempt to overthrow the Romanian government failed spectacularly, the Kremlin is now allocating huge resources to preventing the perpetrators from being extradited from Dubai to face justice. Headline from Kremlin-linked operatives scramble to stop extradition of mercenary accused of plotting coup, out of The Guardian. As you know, this Georgescu guy popped out of nowhere with about 180 million euros of Russian money. He was just an agricultural professor in little red pants. Popped up out of nowhere, and via a massive TikTok campaign, social media campaign, paid voters, all the normal stuff that Russia pulls off, like in places like Moldova. It was a huge campaign, and they actually got this guy in the first round presidential elections to show first. Luckily, the Romanian government figured out what was going on. They uncovered houses full of explosives. The backup plan was that the Russians were going to create a series of riots and unrest in all the major Romanian cities. And these guys all fled. The ringleaders that were working for Russia, they all fled, and a lot of them fled. Some are in jail in Romania. Anyway, Russia does not want this guy to be extradited from, look at that guy. That's exactly the guy you would think they wouldn't want to be extradited. Exactly the guy you would think is running something like that. He was like made for that role. That face, I don't know. They always look like this. It's crazy. It's like there's a factory somewhere putting these creatures out. And further on, Russians being hunted globally for atrocities committed all over Europe and Ukraine. We have, I'll read you what I wrote. As we always knew, for the next 40 years, Ukraine's version of post-World War II Mossad is going to make Mossad look like an episode of the Teletubbies. On October 25th, Ukraine took out a Russian lieutenant colonel in Russia's Keremovo region, one Veniamin Vegerin, responsible for atrocities in Kyiv earlier this year. And this is basically a clip. I don't think I can show it to you on YouTube, so I won't. Anyway, it shows, I guess it's Ukraine's GUR. And a few days ago, I guess 3 days ago, they basically blew this guy up. And this is a really bad guy, but look where it happened. I mean, if Russians can't be safe on the other side of Kazakhstan for atrocities committed years ago in Ukraine, this was one of the Oman guys. These were the raping, murdering. These were the savages that inflicted. I can't even talk about the things that they did. I don't know really the rules on YouTube, honestly, what I can say. But things they did in Kyiv, I mean, you have no idea the things they did in Kyiv, on level with the worst that you would hear from the Vikings. Worse. Inflicted on pets. I mean, kids, just horrible, horrible, horrible stuff. And Ukraine is going to take out all these guys. It's just a matter of time. We have, Ukraine has technology. Like it's a new world. It's not like where the Nazis could hide in Argentina, Mengele and these guys who hid for, decades or whatever. It's not going to play out like that this time. And speaking about propaganda, this is from this morning. So this morning, Russians used a drone to place a Russian flag. And this was immediately in conjunction with the entire Kremlin propaganda network's apparatus, Western paid influencers, everyone. I'll read you what I wrote. Having lost 25,000 troops in 1.5 years trying to take the ruins of Ukraine's small town of Pokrovsk, Russians revert to placing a Russian flag with a drone at the city entrance. Putin really, really, really needs a win right now. He needs a win. He needs to be able to show that, look, it's useless to fight. Big, strong. We've got the super weapon, and we've got even a new super weapon that's even more super than the last super weapon. And here's us placing a flag. That was up for about, half hour or so. Anyway, so this was circulated all over Twitter and social media among even the Western paid influencers there in New York and California. Everybody, oh my God, they have taken Pokrovsk, the ruins of a town that had a population before the war of like 15,000 people. They have taken the ruins, and that they are going to win, and we better bow down and give Putin everything he wants, let alone the super weapon. But right away, what happened was this. Russia had hours to circulate this video of a flag around global media, but alas, ... The good men and women of Ukrainian armed forces have deleted the filthy rag of the Russian sewer state. Yes, the Russian hell state is not having a good day. And that's all I've got for you today, guys. Have a good one.